So throughout the entire year, I've been told that Jalen Hurts can only run the football, that he's not a good quarterback at all. So I guess it should be shocking for some people when they looked at the box score and realized he passed for 380 yards last week and 3 touchdowns. But maybe people will finally realize that he's an actual good MVP quarterback and not just some guy that runs the football sometimes. You're watching Sports Talk Philadelphia. Welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. As always, I'm your host, Aiden Tusinski. I'm joined today by a slightly smaller panel, but still energetic to talk about sports. First, I'm joined by Shane Nolan. Shane, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Phil's got Trey Turner, so.
And then we have Mike Holden to my far left. Mike, how are you?
Hey, Eagles 11-1. Philly's trying to sign Trey Turner. Going to be better.
Yeah, the Eagles are 11-1, and they had an impressive win over the Titans on Sunday. They won the game 35-10, and as I mentioned in the opener, Jalen Hurts went off passing the ball, passed for 380 yards, had 4 total touchdowns, and A.J. Brown had a nice reunion game against the Titans, 8 receptions for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, Mike, we're first going to start off with the game Jalen Hurts has. Where does this now put him in the MVP conversation?
I think in a lot of people's minds, it puts him above Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if I'm going to put him above him just yet, but he's definitely close to it. And there's no doubt that it's just him and Mahomes. There's nobody. He's definitely above Allen and the other people in that race. But it was, in my opinion, his best game of his career. I mean, what he's doing this year, 29 total touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. I mean, he's the real deal, and you could probably even argue that he's doing better than what we saw Carson do in his first half in 2017. I mean, that team went to 10-2, and this team's 11-1, and he's just what he can do in the passing game this year, which, like you mentioned, just improvement in so many high regards, and then just what he's doing in the run game as well. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah, and the other guy that torched the Titans on offense was A.J. Brown, obviously a former Titans wide receiver. We talked last week that there was a chance that game and the fact that he was a former Titans wide receiver might get into his head. It really didn't affect him at all, and he played probably his best game as an Eagles wide receiver. And the duo between him and Devontae Smith, is that probably the best duo that the Eagles have ever had?
Yeah, I mean, and it's the first, I got a stat here, it's the first receiver duo since D-Jax and Riley Cooper did it in 2013 to have 100-plus receiving yards in a game, which is just phenomenal. And they're both on pace to pass 1,000 yards in the season, which to have 2 receivers, I know receiver has kind of always been an issue for the Eagles, but now that we have 2 1,000-plus yard receivers, it's just incredible. And it's just so fun to watch, and just we didn't think that. We knew it would be a big impact with Brown, but what he's done to elevate Hurts, it's just been amazing. And it's a big reason why Hurts is even having his MVP type season.
So the offense has talked a lot about this week, but the defense also stepped up in a huge way on Sunday. They had 6 total sacks. And Nakobe Dean, who was the rookie third-round pick for the Eagles, who hadn't played a snap all season, finally got his first appearance, and he made it count. He had 5 total tackles in only 15 snaps, which is pretty ridiculous for a guy who had only played preseason football this entire season. Mike, what were your thoughts about the defense overall?
Yeah, I mean, the defense, again, was great. I mean, and, you know, we've been getting on this run defense all year, and they're finally starting to play well. And it seems like the additions of Sue and Joseph have kind of just taken the pressure off some of these other guys. I mean, Cox is, playing well the past couple weeks. Hargrave, who's leading the team in sacks with 8. And then obviously Dean had a chance, to get in this game a little bit, and he played well. He had a tackle for a loss, and he's kind of just been relegated to special teams this year. But we drafted him because he was one of the best linebackers at Georgia, and he's going to get his opportunity. It might not be as much this year, but he took advantage of it when he got in the game on Sunday, and hopefully we can see more and more of him as the season goes on and just for the rest of his Eagles career.
So you mentioned the fact that the Eagles really shut down the run game. Derrick Henry, who's probably one of the best running backs in the NFL, if not the best, was only able to get 30 yards throughout the entire game. Mike, how much more confident are you in the Eagles' rush defense after this game?
I mean, yeah, you go against Derrick Henry, and he was only averaging 2.7 yards a carry, which is just, against him, is just incredible. And his longest run was 8 yards, and you do not see that every day. And how bad this Eagles' run defense has been, what they've done against him, and then Jonathan Taylor and Aaron Jones the past couple weeks has been great, and hopefully they can carry that to next week when they play Barkley, because they have to see him twice more this year. But hopefully they can carry that same success next week when they play the Giants and Saquon Barkley.
And going back to Nakobe Dean, the Eagles have talked a lot about using a slot corner instead of a regular 4-3 with 3 linebackers. Nakobe Dean kind of showed in this game that he could potentially get a lot of starting minutes later in the season. Mike, do you think that the Eagles should stick with the defense they have now or get rid of the slot corner and go with a 4-3 with 3 linebackers?
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're doing now is working. One thing to keep an eye on, Avonte Maddox, they should be getting back him soon, and he's been, they've used him in that nickel slot corner role, so hopefully they can put him back and, the minutes or the snaps for like Josiah Scott and those guys go down. But yeah, I hope they use Dean more because he's so athletic. That's why they've been using him on special teams, just his athletic ability, but what he can do on defense just as a linebacker in general is special, and that's why they drafted him, and I'm glad that he slid to the 3rd round because I thought he was going to go higher than that.
That's probably the steal of the draft at this point. When you look at the rest of the NFC East standings, not only the Eagles refusing to lose, but so is every other team. The Eagles are 11-1, but the Dallas Cowboys are still right behind them at 9-3. And the Giants and Commanders played each other and tied. The Giants have a half-game lead over the Commanders due to the fact that they have one less loss. But it is still very, very close. And even at this point, if you had thought that the Eagles were 11-1 right now, you would have thought the division was completely sealed in their favor. And that's still not the case. If they win this week, they get a playoff spot, but they still haven't necessarily clinched the East. Mike, are you worried at all about how the Cowboys are playing?
A little bit, just because that Christmas Eve game, it's going to matter probably, and if they lose that game, and that could be their 2nd loss of the season. If they lose that game, they could be tied with the Cowboys after that week, and that could just move them right back into a wild card spot, even with such a good record. But it's worrying, but I'm still confident. I'm like, when this win on Sunday just really, I think, just shattered everybody's expectations of what they were going to do, and I think it proved that they're the real deal. And as an Eagles fan, obviously, I hate the Cowboys. I'm tired of hearing about them, so I hope that this Christmas Eve game, they can really just put that to bed and just show that they are the best team in this division.
And not only are the Cowboys right behind the Eagles, but so are the Vikings when it comes to the NFC standings overall. The Eagles still are slated for the 1 slot, and the Vikings have the number 2 seed. And you have to remember that when it comes to the seeding now, only one team gets a bye. It's no longer the 2 best teams get byes. So, Mike, how important is it for the Eagles to finish out strong and get that 1 seed?
Yeah, it's important. In that game against the Vikings in Week 2 was huge. You got the tiebreaker against them, so that will definitely – I think the only team that you are going to be worried about of taking that 1 seed from you is the Cowboys. I mean, it would have been the Niners for me a week before, but now that they lost Garoppolo, I think they've gone down a lot. I think you still can't count them out, but they're definitely not as much as a threat without Garoppolo, or just not with Brock Purdy, I should say. But I think the Eagles, I think they have a perfect opportunity to get 1, and I think they will, but it will come down to that game on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, so for a while, we've been holding off on talking about playoffs, but we're now at that point in the season where the Eagles are almost potentially pretty much locked for a playoff spot. So it's now coming to looking at matchups. Mike, who is your biggest concern for the Eagles when it comes to the playoffs this season?
I mean, I think it's kind of hard to say now. I think I would have said the Niners, just like I just said before Garoppolo got hurt, because that defense is just so good, and they added McCaffrey, and they got Debo and Ayuk, but it's just, you cannot win. I mean, you can. I mean, we saw what Nick Foles could do, but I mean, Brock Purdy, he was Mr. Irrelevant for a reason, and it will be it's only his 2nd career NFL game, so I'm not too worried about them. But if there is a team, it will be the Cowboys. But the Vikings, they're still a good team, but we took care of them in Week 2, so I don't think they're too much to worry about for us. But they're still a good team.
Yeah, pretty much this whole season, every team's been so close to each other when it comes to records, when it comes to skill level. The Eagles have a little bit of advantage, but it's still not that much compared to some of the other top-tier teams in the NFC and in the NFL overall. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out when it comes to the playoffs. But looking now at next week, instead of looking too far ahead, the Eagles are playing another division rival in the Giants. It's the first time they're playing the Giants all season. They are playing a Giants team that's 7-4-1. They're 3rd in the NFC East, but they still have had the Eagles number the last couple of seasons. They were 1-1 against the Eagles last year, and they still have Saquon Barkley, who's over 1,000 yards rushing and 8 rushing touchdowns this season. Another tough running back the Eagles have to face. Mike, how do you think they're going to do stopping the Giants' run game?
I mean, if they just continue what they did against the Titans on Sunday, they'll have the same success. I mean, Barkley had 2 great games against them last year, but like we've been saying the past couple weeks, kind of just, not stopping them, but just containing them because, you look at that offense, there's not much there. Daniel Jones, and those receivers, not much there. But it will come down to what the offense can do because Jalen Hurts had his worst game last year against the Cowboys in the Meadowlands. So hopefully he can just use that as motivation and get this team to 12-1 and get this first win against the Giants.
You're talking about the run game as well. Ryan Tannehill had a couple nice, solid runs against the Eagles, and he's not really known as a mobile quarterback. Daniel Jones is. So, Mike, what are the Eagles going to have to do to contain Daniel Jones as well?
Yeah, I think, if they can just contain him because he doesn't have that many weapons in the passing game at all. So he does like to look to rush with his feet a little more. But it will be him and Barkley on the ground, and that's what you got to worry about. But he has had some good runs against the Eagles. That one play a couple years ago when he fell at the 10-yard line. But that's the one play I can remember, of course. But yeah, he's a threat, but he's not Hurts on the ground. He's not Lamar, but he is a threat on the ground for sure.
Do you think that the Eagles are going to win this game, Mike?
I think they're going to win. I think it's going to be tougher than a lot of people say, but it's a division game. It's the Giants. You're away. It's going to be tough, but I do see them winning.
Yeah, I also believe that they're going to pull this one out. Hopefully they're able to because it would get them a playoff spot if they win this game. So that would be huge for the Eagles this season. We're now going to go to a team that is struggling a little bit more than they were a couple weeks ago. In the Sixers, they've now lost 3 straight games, including an embarrassing 132-123 loss to the Rockets in double overtime. It was James Harden's first game back since his injury over a month ago, and he played decently. He had 21 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, but he only shot 4 of 13 from the field, and that's just not acceptable when you have a guy like James Harden. Mike, what are your thoughts about this losing streak and getting James Harden back?
Yeah, the past 3 losses have been bad, especially this Rockets game. I know it went to double overtime, but this is the Rockets team who's going to get most likely the first pick. They are the worst team, in my opinion, in the league. And the fact that you lost and just that it went to double overtime is just not good at all. But, yeah, James Harden, you look at his stat line, it was good. But, like you said, 4 for 19, 7 turnovers is not what you want from him. A little rusty. He started the season off so well, too, and you thought, maybe he looks like a little MVP Harden. But I don't think we're going to get that. Like we've always said, we just want him just to play well, be that, pass first, and also here and there use that ISO that he's so good at. But yeah, just not a good start. And these past 3 games, especially that Cavs game, was just not pretty. Yeah,
when we talked about the Sixers a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how great the bench was. In this Rockets game, they scored 24 points in an entire regulation period and 2 overtimes. So, Mike, what are your thoughts now about the Sixers bench? Are they just going to be inconsistent the entire season?
Yeah, when we were talking about it, I kind of brought it up they're playing good, but we want them to play good when they actually come off the bench, not just when they're forced into that starting role. And again, Shake Milton's still been the only one playing decently, but everybody else is just a non-factor, when you get these starters back. And you got to pick up these starters, especially Harden, who's coming off this injury. He's not going to be full health right away, and he might not be for the rest of the year. So you got to rely on these bench players. So hopefully this is just a little stretch for them, but they got to help these starters out for sure.
Yeah, the bench players need to step up, as Mike just said. If they don't, the Sixers are going to be in a lot more trouble than they are now. And even right now, the standings aren't looking good. They've fallen all the way to the A seed, which is still a playoff spot, but now you're talking about being in the play-in rather than just getting a regular spot. They're still only a half game behind the Pacers for the 6th seed, which would get them out of the play-in. And again, it's still very early in the season to be talking about playoffs, but the Sixers just don't feel like the team that they were even the last 2 years when they were one of the top teams in the East. Mike, is there any chance that the Sixers can get up to that conversation with the Bucks or the Celtics for one of the top teams in the East?
Unfortunately, I don't know if they're going to get to where the Bucks and the Celtics are. I think the Bucks and Celtics are just above everybody else in the East. I think they're just so good right now that there's just nobody near them. But I think they're better than teams like the Pacers and the who's the other team? The Pacers and the Hawks. I think they're better than those 2 teams. I think they're more with the Cavs and the Nets. I think it'll be those 3 teams kind of fighting for 3, 4, 5. I don't see the Sixers finishing where they are now, but I do not think they're going to get to 1 and 2. But I think they will be a little better than where they are now. But we'll see kind of how it plays out.
So I'm just going to give a quick hypothetical situation just to hear your response to this. So if the Sixers finish where they do now at 500 and in the play-in, is there a chance that they just blow everything up this offseason, just trade away Embiid and maybe look at trading Harden? Or do you think that they'll wait 1 more year?
I think you first go with, you get rid of Doc Rivers first of all, and then you start there. And then I think trading Embiid, I think that's your last option. I don't think just because they have a bad season this year, they finished 6th or 7th, I don't think that's a reason to trade Embiid, but I think it's definitely something to consider more than you would have before. But I don't think you pull the trigger just yet, but it is something to consider more than you probably would have before.
It's something that will definitely keep on the lookout when it comes to the Sixers throughout the rest of the season. But when you look at their next couple of games, these are going to be very important. They have the Lakers Friday night, a primetime game on ESPN. You've then got a couple other games against some lesser opponents. So, Mike, what are they going to have to do with this upcoming schedule between the Lakers, Hornets, and Kings throughout the next week?
Yeah, this is a huge, 7-game homestand because they have not played well at home at all. And, for them to have success, and like they've had the past couple of years, they have to play well at home. And it's just something that they've done well, but this year they're 7-5 at home, which is just, you can't do that if you want to be a top 3, top 2 team in the East. So they have to win these games, especially against the teams that are struggling. So this is an important homestand that hopefully they can get back on track with.
And the game Friday night, I think, is something that is going to be talked about for a lot of NBA fans because it's two of the best centers in the league. You first got Embiid, who has always been very, very good, but Anthony Davis is having a great comeback here with the Lakers. He's leading the team in points, and that's a team that also has LeBron James on them. And I don't know the last time that LeBron hasn't led a team in scoring, but it's been definitely a while. If it's ever happened, I really don't know. But Anthony Davis has been the leading scorer. It's going to be tough for Embiid to shut down Anthony Davis in this game.
Yeah, and Anthony Davis has been on a tear. He's probably, right now, you could probably put him as the MVP. I know it's 24 games in, but as the leading candidate for MVP. He's been so good. And, we know he's been good, but it's kind of, health has been, just like Embiid, health has been a concern for him. But when he's healthy, he's, if not the best big man in the game with him and Embiid. So it's going to be a fun matchup on Friday.
It's when you look at these next 3 games specifically, when it comes to the Lakers, the Kings, and the Hornets, who do you have winning these games, and how important is it for the Sixers to sort of win all 3 to get some momentum back?
I mean, you look at all these 3 teams, they should all be winnable games. Obviously that Lakers game probably will be the hardest, but they're all winnable games, and, but they're not games that you also can't just dwell over. There are games, I mean, you just lost to the worst team in the league, so there's really no team that you should be taking lightly. So these are games that they just have to, just like they're like an NBA Finals Game 7. Just go out there, win the game, go on to the next one, and just keep winning.
Yeah, you mentioned the worst team in the league. We're going to jump to a team that is one of the worst in their leagues, in the Flyers. They did have a very nice win against the Avalanche, though, who won the NHL Stanley Cup last year. So, Shane, I'm going to go to you. Does this win mean that the Flyers can be expected to go to the playoffs?
No, it definitely does not. I mean, the Avalanche are a injury-ridden team right now. Nathan McKinnon got hurt in that game. They are missing some key players. They're missing Gabriel Landeskog. They're missing Valerie Nichushkin. They're missing Josh Manson on defense. So eventually, no, it's just, no. This win does not determine if they will make the playoffs or not. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to sniff anywhere near a playoff position. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I was 99% joking about the Flyers making the playoffs. I mean, it was a nice win, and there's definitely some things to build off. The 2 power play goals that they had was a very nice thing, considering this is a team that historically for the last couple of years has really struggled scoring on power play goals. And Carter Hart, even though he didn't play great, played solid enough to get the win. So, Shane, what was your biggest takeaway from this game?
Probably is the power play. I mean, like you said, they scored 2 power play goals, and the power play actually looked pretty good during that game. But also the way Carter Hart was played in that game. I mean, to me, I think if he wasn't starting the game, they probably don't win that game. He stopped 2 key breakaway opportunities, and just late in the game when they scored those 2 quick goals, they weren't solely on him. I mean, the defense couldn't stop Rantanen coming right down the middle, and then you allow another guy to come in from behind the goal line, and then is able to get a centering pass off, and then just, I think it was Alex Newhook who made it 4-3.
It's just similar to how we just talked about the Sixers. The Flyers are still at the very beginning of their season. We know that they're not going to be a very good team. But Shane, have you seen any positive things so far, even the last couple of games, from where they were after that losing streak?
I guess the power play has been better. That definitely got better. The last 2 games they played against the Avalanche and then recently against the Capitals, the penalty kill has looked like it has improved. I mean, both the one Colorado Avalanche goal was off power play, and then against the Capitals the other night, they scored a power play goal. But the power play has definitely been better, and also, I mean, Travis Konechny, he's having a great season so far, and also Kevin Hayes, who so far is having a point per game season. So.
Yeah, so even with all those somewhat positive things, and even after a very nice win, it hasn't helped the Flyers at all in the standings. They're still 7th in the Metropolitan, only in front of the Blue Jackets by like basically a win. I think the most surprising team has got to be the Devils, the fact that they are by far the best team in the entire Metropolitan. And also going back to the Flyers, they still have the 8th pick in the draft, if the draft were to happen right now. So Shane, is there any sort of possibility that the Flyers try to tank even more than they are already? I don't even know if that's possible, but it's got to be something to consider at this point, the fact that they still have the 8th pick.
I mean, to me, I don't think they're going to intentionally tank because just their coach, John Tortorella, I mean, he's a hard-working coach, and he expects the best out of his players no matter how good the team is or how bad the team is, and he just won't let that happen. But essentially, I mean, they are playing bad, so that's, I mean, if they keep playing the way they're playing right now, they will drop down lower into the standings and hopefully a top 3 pick.
Yeah, having Tortorella as the coach, it definitely creates a weird dynamic between a team that has a possible bright future, but right now just isn't there, and he's going to coach them as hard as possible, as Shane mentioned. But it just feels like this is a team that you want to get as low as a draft pick as possible. That's sort of just where the Flyers are at right now, unfortunately. We're now going to go to Fast Five. We're going to have a somewhat more normal Fast Five than we've had the last couple of weeks. The World Cup's still going on, but there's been a lot of other sports news. Biggest thing in Philadelphia has to be the Trey Turner signing. He just signed an 11-year, $300 million contract. Sorry. Shane, what were your thoughts on this contract?
The Phillies really needed this after letting Gene Segura go. Last year, Trey Turner, well, this past season, Trey Turner, he was batting .298, hit 21 home runs. This probably won't happen, but he's your typical leadoff hitter. He has speed, he can hit the ball, he can steal bases, and so this was very important to them to get a top tier, probably the best shortstop in the league.
Yeah, definitely is going to help defensively with the Phillies as well, and probably means Bryson Stott's going to move from shortstop to second base, but it's really not going to affect the Phillies too much at all. And like I said, it's going to be nice to bring in a nice defensive glove, and as Shane mentioned, some nice offensive power at shortstop. It's a great signing by the Phillies. It's going to be interesting to see how it works out with that long-term contract. We're now going to go to Mike talking about the World Cup. Unfortunately, the United States season ended in heartbreak, and they lost to Netherlands. Mike, what was your thought about this entire World Cup and this loss specifically?
Yeah, I mean, as not really a huge soccer fan, this World Cup has really been fun to watch, and it's the one thing about soccer I do like to watch, and it has not disappointed. And yeah, the U.S., they weren't really expected to do much. The fact that they got to the knockout stage is huge. It's just a good boost for 2026, and hopefully it just gives them the confidence. And it's good that Pulisic got that World Cup experience a little bit. So, it was tough. That game, they were in it. When they made it 2-1, you kind of thought like, they might have a chance. They had so many opportunities, but just didn't happen. But hopefully they can use this as experience for 2026 on home soil.
Yeah, and this was one of the youngest teams in the entire World Cup. As Mike mentioned, there's a lot to look forward to with their future. The United States is going to be one of 3 countries hosting the 2026 World Cup. So the United States wants to have a great showing for that. And Mike, I just want to go back to you quickly. When it comes to hosting a big sporting event like the World Cup, the United States need to do very, very well. So far, they've been bounced out of the 16-team round, and they haven't really shown up at all besides that. Do you have high expectations for this next World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, you fast forward 4 years, so that's just even 4 more years of experience. And, Pulisic, I think he'll be, 28, 29. So
something like
yeah,
that. Yeah,
so it would definitely, this experience, just the age would definitely make them. And I know there's a lot of, talk about, switching from the coach. As not really a huge soccer fan, I don't really know how to feel about that, but it did seem like there was some things that he could have probably done better. But I'm not gonna. That's not my area to kind of say. But it will be interesting to see how much change there was from this World Cup to 4 years from now.
Yeah, we're now going to go from football, that is just known internationally, to American football, specifically college football. The college football playoff was just announced, and it wasn't too surprising, but there was some controversy between the committee picking TCU over Alabama. Mike, what were your reactions to that pick?
Yeah, I think it was the right move. I mean, I think if Alabama got in, I think a lot of people would have been, not too happy about it, just because, it seems like TCU did deserve it, and they did lose to Kansas State. I think they did deserve it a little more than Alabama. But I think they did get the rankings right. I think Ohio State did deserve it, but I think they did get this TCU over Alabama right.
Yeah, especially with the committee changing the playoffs next year to being 12 teams. That means that in this format that's been going on right now, there's never been a two-loss team to make the playoffs. It would have felt very wrong for them to have Alabama be a two-loss team and make it now. So I agree, Mike. I think they made the right pick going with TCU. We're going to go back to some baseball news with Shane. Aaron Judge, who just broke the American League home run record this year, signed a massive extension with the Yankees. What were your thoughts on this?
The Yankees definitely needed to re-sign Aaron Judge, because if they didn't, I don't think they make the playoffs next season. Even though one person can't carry you in baseball, but just because the Yankees got off to a very great start in the first half last season, Aaron Judge did kind of hold them up in the second half, because the rest of the lineup did not do anything. And especially if you don't re-sign the guy who broke the American League home run record, there's seriously something wrong with you.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of talks, especially among Yankees fans, about they need to bring Judge back because he is the heart of that team. There was a report by, I believe it was John Heyman, saying that Judge was officially going to the Giants, and then it didn't work out that way. Were you sort of surprised that the Giants didn't get him? Because I honestly thought that's where he was going to go.
Kind of, because, I mean, he is from San Francisco, and they did put out a tweet that said when he was in high school that when he got older, he was going to be married to his wife, who he's married to right now, and also be playing for the San Francisco Giants. But I just feel like because he was drafted by the Yankees, he did want to be in New York, and I mean, he just wanted that extra year because he signed the same contract that the Giants gave him, but the Yankees originally was just giving him 8 years, and he said to the GM that he wanted the extra 9 years. So he is just a good fit for him in New York.
Yeah, loyalty is something that's always questioned a lot among athletes in this current age of sports. So it's good to see a guy be loyal to his team. We're going to go to one more topic, and this is one of my favorite sports in rugby. There was some huge international news. Eddie Jones, who was the coach of the England's international squad, just got fired, and they're only 10 months out from the most recent World Cup, which will be in 2023. It's very concerning for England fans because of the fact that Jones had the highest winning percentage among any coach in England rugby history, and the fact that he also got them to second in the Rugby World Cup after they're not even qualifying for the quarterfinals in 2015. This is also big news for the United States because there's some rumors that Jones might go to the United States to be their next international coach. It didn't seem like that was going to happen until after the 2023 World Cup, but now that Jones has been fired, it seems like that there is plenty of opportunities for him, and hopefully he considers the United States. There's also some rumors that he could go to Australia to be an assistant coach there until 2023, but it's going to be interesting for a lot of international squads of how this is going to shape up because Eddie Jones is so well known and the fact that he's such a big-time coach. This wraps up our most recent episode. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. You can check us out on social media on Twitter and Instagram at SportsTalk LTV. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next year.